And we are live. I didn't like that. I'm gonna be honest.
It was spicy.
Yeah, well, and I wanted it to be, but I didn't like the way it came out. It made me feel like a frog in some way. I don't know. It just didn't make me feel good. It didn't make me feel good. And so I'm never going to do that again. I will spice it up sometimes. I like, but I didn't like that.
That wasn't the right iteration. That's okay.
Do you feel that way?
I'm interested to see what other options we have.
Oh, God.
This would be the year of trying new things.
Yes. Every time I say we are live, I'm gonna get wild.
All right.
I'm going to get completely out of hand. Hi, everybody. We're back with another episode. This is episode 24 of Lowering the Barrier, and today we're going to talk about body recomposition, simultaneous fat loss, and muscle growth. Okay, now technically, body recomposition, I mean, you're changing your body's composition. Mm-hmm. Technically, if I dreamer bulk, which you heard about in the last episode, which I know you guys listened to, episode 23 on Bulking 101, dreamer bulk obviously adds a lot of excess adiposity. Mm-hmm. Excess is maybe debated, but adds body fat, and that could be a change in your body composition.
I mean, cutting is also a change. It's all a change.
Anything, in
your body composition.
Yeah, if I lift weights for 6 weeks, I mean, I change my body composition. I gain more muscle. Yeah, depending on the calorie intake I had. Maybe gain some body fat, lost some body fat, depending. But anyway, the people that most people, when they're talking about body recomposition, they're talking about gaining muscle and losing body fat at the same time. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode, because there was a while back where I posted, should I bulk or should I cut? Mm-hmm. And that video did very well. I mean, millions of views. It did very, very well. I'm actually going to repost it tomorrow.
Ooh.
But yeah, it did really well. And people were, and I did write in the caption, like, you don't have to choose one or the other. You could go to maintenance and, gain muscle at maintenance, lose body fat technically at maintenance. We'll kind of get into the weeds of that in a minute. But people don't read the caption. I mean, you know this, I know this, listener, you know this. And so there were a bunch of comments saying like, well, what about maintenance? What about body recomp? What about main gaining? What about gaintaining? And it's like, okay, first I set the precedent because it was a 2-person reel. And one of the people said, I want to lose body fat. I want to lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. How much body fat are you going to lose at maintenance? Basically none.
Not much.
Basically none. And the listener might be like, wait, I thought you didn't lose any because I thought a calorie deficit was needed for fat loss. We'll get into that. All right. Before we do, if you want to like support me, if you want to give me your money, there are a few ways that you can do that. You could check it, but it's a win-win. It's a mutually beneficial.
There's an exchange happening.
It's not like I'm not asking for tips. I'm not asking for, like, I don't have one of those like buy me a coffee things.
Oh yeah.
I've thought about it because like my Q&A takes hours every week to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Just like, I'd rather buy other people coffee, if I'm being honest.
That's very cool.
I don't need people to buy me things. I'd rather buy other people things. Unless anybody out there wants to buy me a golf simulator. That would be sick. Yeah. But anyway, check out the A-Team. You can get a 7-day free trial. 4 workouts per week for the home and gym. So whether you got dumbbells only or you got access to a full gym, you could get workouts that are pretty dang good. Cycles are updated every 6 weeks. If you need help with both training and nutrition, check out Forward Forever. We have a thriving community in Forward Forever, and I'm so proud of it, genuinely. It's just really cool. Yeah. We've had over 2,000 people now go through Forward Forever, and it's been really cool hearing, just last night we were doing our wrap-up 6-week call. And just a heads up, it's a 6-week program initially, but then you can pay a much lower fee of somewhere around like $30 to $35-ish, depending on what you get per month. But Yeah, last night we were doing our 6-week call, and people, like, somebody said this literally changed or this was literally life changing. It's like, wow. I mean,
High praise.
that's really high praise. That's
Yeah.
cool. Like, that's awesome. And then if you want to work with me one-on-one, you feel like you need a little bit more accountability, check out the Change Project. That's my new one-on-one coaching program. It is booming. But I will say that I'm not taking on too many more people because we're going on vacation in February, and 3 people just started on Monday, January 13th. Oh, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. 3 people just started yesterday. So, I don't know. You can flood my applications, but, or, I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you apply, we'll see if you're a good fit. We'll have an honest conversation. And if we're not a good fit, that's okay. And then you get to, I don't know, we get to chat and we just get to meet each other, which is always fun. Okay. What are we watching? What are we watching lately?
We just finished a rewatch of Severance season 1.
Our 3rd rewatch of Severance. Yeah, Severance is my favorite TV show of all time. It's not even close.
No. This is the only show we really rewatch.
Especially outside like a drama, outside of like sitcoms.
Yeah, like background noise.
We've rewatched The Office, a bunch of times. Yeah, I mean, Severance is just insane. I highly, highly recommend it. It's like a thriller, but not like scary thriller.
Like suspense?
Drama, suspense. Yeah. Psychological for sure.
Yeah. But it's also really funny.
It's also very funny. Yeah. And season 2 comes out on the 17th of January. So depending on when you're listening to this, you may have already watched season 2. You may be just in time because I'm probably going to post this on the 15th tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So highly recommend Severance season 2. Outside of that,
yes.
we're watching Taskmaster, but we finished up a few seasons.
Yeah. Well, that'll be probably what we watch in the meantime. In the next 2 days.
Oh, and then Arcane. I don't know if I ever mentioned Arcane, but Arcane on Netflix was so good. It's like an anime kind of thing. Anime-ish. It's not like the typical anime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
It is animated.
Yeah, I don't know the classification.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
I'm not an anime purist. I watched like Dragon Ball Z growing up, and that's about it. I do think anime is good, like in general. I just haven't really gotten around to watching it. Okay, so let's talk simultaneous fat loss and muscle growth. Where should we start? Do you have any questions about it? What's your take on it? What's your take on body recomp? Just give me your thoughts. Thoughts on.
My thoughts on. I think a lot of people would achieve what their end goal is going this route. Faster. Well, not faster. Slower weight loss. In a focus on muscle growth, I think we'll get a lot of people the body that they are envisioning for themselves a lot easier as far as like adherence goes versus a strict cut. That's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. When I work with a lot of men and women, but a lot of women, a lot of women want to work with me, and one of the chief things that I hear is I want to get toned.
Yeah.
And when we think toned, that's the combination of gaining muscle and losing body fat. A lot of there are some, I don't hate it. I don't love using the blanket term influencers because an influencer is just anybody who influences. Mm-hmm. I'd say primarily on social media, but really could be anywhere. But a lot of fitness accounts, nutrition accounts, fitness especially, there are many out there that they don't really know what they're talking about, and they'll say like, oh, a toning exercise or a toning workout.
Yeah.
And that's kind of baloney, because if we want to get toned, I mean, everybody has muscle, mm-hmm. right? Everybody. I mean, we need muscle to move our limbs, to blink our eyes. Like muscles do that. And we can grow the muscle, called hypertrophy. That's increase in muscle size. We can grow the muscle, or we can lose body fat to reveal the muscle. So when we're talking about toning, this is what you want to do. You want to achieve simultaneous fat loss and muscle growth at the same time. Now, you might be thinking, okay, why wouldn't everybody just do that then? Why would somebody go through a bulk and cut cycle? Mm-hmm. And that's a valid question, and it's mostly because first, muscle growth slows down as you've been training for longer. So I've been lifting for like 13. Oh God.
Is that upsetting?
Well, it just makes me feel kind of old. Yeah, 13 years. Not all of it were structured. Not all of it were intelligently. I would say the last like 4 years were much more serious. Before then, it was like some barbell squat, bench, and deadlift in the basement with my buddy, or just push-ups in my dorm room. You know, occasionally going to the gym and doing like bicep curls or something like that. But anyway, I don't even remember what was I saying about that. I just like had flashbacks to my old college days.
You're just talking about like, oh my God, now I'm losing my train of thought.
Oh, that's so funny.
Because now I'm thinking about like our history of working out and how it's changed up until this point.
I know. Isn't it funny? You know, Milo eventually, you know how like the story around like our grandparents is like, oh, you know, to get to school, I used to bike.
Yeah.
I used to walk uphill 5 miles both ways, uphill both ways, you know? Back when we were living at the old apartment, one of them, and I was working out at my parents' basement.
Yeah.
And you had a job that you had to drive to.
Yeah.
And we only had one car.
Yeah.
And so you used my car, and I biked 5 miles there.
Yeah.
Got my workout in, and they were powerlifting workouts at the time. So they were like pretty intense.
They were intense.
And then 5 miles back after. And I did that like 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah. There was like a 2 or 3 week period before
I was like, we need to get her a car.
Yeah. Well, I think,
You got the car.
It was just, we were in process of it like being delivered to us.
Yeah, that's what it was. You bought the car. And then I said, I'm gonna flex for a second. Then I said, go in the trunk. And you open the trunk, and what did I have in there?
It was just like a
note, like a handwritten note that said like your car's paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
cool.
flashy.
That was that was sick. That was sick. That was like all the money I had. Oh boy, the things we do for love. We were already engaged. Like, this wasn't this wasn't like 4 weeks into our relationship or anything.
No,
like,
this was like we'd been 4 together. Years.
We had like already like, well, I don't know. We basically merged our finances in terms of like, I guess we didn't have a shared bank account at the time.
No, not until that was actually pretty recent.
Yeah, that was a recent change. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, wow, really went down the rabbit hole. For people who like don't care about us, which like, yeah, I mean, fair, yeah.
Like, who are we?
They're like, they're just here for the muscle growth and the fat loss information. They're like, I don't care about your fucking car.
Yeah,
I don't care about your cars. I don't care about your biking. Anyway, let's break this. Let's break body. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. It's 8 p.m. We have to do these at night now when our son goes to sleep. Like, we've worked the last like 11 hours straight.
Yeah.
Our brains are kind of fried. I don't know. Maybe eventually we'll find a way to do these when we're a little bit fresher. When we God,
we could wake up at 5 a.m.
It's not happening. It's not happening. Can you imagine if we had a cup of coffee right now, though?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
That'd be crazy. All right. Anyway, back to it. Man, I'm gonna add timestamps for this one. Well, I always do, but let's break this body recomposition thing into 2 separate parts. Let's just make it really simple. So what's needed for fat loss? A calorie deficit, right? And then what's needed for muscle growth? Training stimulus primarily. And a few other things can help that, but let's just focus on like the main things. So for fat loss, when we're looking at a calorie deficit, you know, the larger calorie deficit we're in, the faster we'll lose fat up to a point. There is a maximum rate that our body can pull energy from adipose tissue or body fat. There is a maximum rate. I'm going to do a podcast on this eventually, but I'd really like it to be solid. And so anyway, future episode, rapid fat loss, or like what's the maximum rate of fat loss that you could achieve. But anyway, so there is an upper limit to that, but let's just like say, I don't even want to put a number on it because people will think that's like an actual number, and it's very dependent on how much body fat you have.
Right.
Somebody who is 140 pounds and very lean is going to be, they're going to be able to lose fat way slower. You know, their maximum rate is going to be way slower than somebody who's 350 pounds and like 70% body fat.
Mhm.
Like there's just a massive difference there. So I don't even want to put a number on it, but let me just say that the deeper that you go into a deficit, the more of a calorie deficit that you're in, yes, you will lose body fat faster, but you'll also gain muscle growth, or you'll gain muscle slower. And there was a study. Let me pull up the title really quick. There was a study by Murphy and Kohler, and it's titled "Energy Deficiency Impairs Resistance Training Gains in Lean Mass, but Not Strength: A Meta-Analysis and Meta-Regression." And so, if you guys are unfamiliar, a meta-analysis is just a study of multiple studies. And anyway, this study looked at it divided the literature into studies that either did not have an energy deficit or did have an energy deficit, and then they also looked at like lifting and yada 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 yada. Anyway, the takeaway here is that on average, people didn't gain lean mass when they were in a 500 calorie deficit or larger. And before you start screaming and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm in a 501 calorie deficit, like these are on averages. If you have more body fat, you're going to be able to pull more energy from that. You're probably in a better place. So, to gain muscle, even when you are in a pretty large deficit. I mean, there are people out there that could be in a 1,000 calorie deficit and they start training for the first time. And I rarely say 100.
Yeah.
100% sure that they will gain muscle. 100% sure. The stimulus needed to gain muscle when you are brand new to lifting is so freaking low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's shockingly low. So yeah, you kind of have to weigh that out. How big of a calorie deficit do I want to be in? Okay, well, there is this trade-off. Yes, faster fat loss and, the scale move down faster, but I'm going to be gaining muscle slower. So, okay. And then on the other hand, I know we already talked about this a little bit, but what's needed for muscle growth? It's a training stimulus. Okay, so who does this work better for? Body recomposition. Who will be able to see sufficient fat loss and sufficient muscle growth at the same time? So if you're new to the gym, like I talked about, the stimulus needed when you are, and the rate that your muscle grows is just, it's exuberant when you're new to the gym. If you have excess body fat, like if you are, decently overweight, if you have excess adiposity, you're probably going to be able to, well, not probably, you're going to be able to pull from that for energy, and muscle growth will probably happen pretty well. And then if you're coming back after a long break from lifting, like, okay, so let's say that, I don't know, you're sick, maybe you break a limb or something like that. Let's say you break an arm, like the arm will atrophy, the muscle will shrink on that arm. But when you come back, first, you're going to gain muscle way, 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 way quick. But then also, you'll be able to gain muscle even in a deficit on that area. And that's the same thing goes if, like, let's say you lifted, a lot last year and then you took the last year off because you were just like, I don't know, life happened, and now you want to get back into it. You're going to gain muscle way quicker. You're not starting from ground zero. Like, your baseline has become much higher than it was. Okay, so some people will kind of see these parameters of, oh, well, okay, I'm not new to the gym. Okay, I don't have excess body fat. I'm lean-ish, or at least I'm not, I'm not whatever. And I'm not coming back from a long break from lifting. Can I still recomp? Yes. So we have research, and let me just pull this up so you can look this up on your own if you're curious. So the title, the authors rather are, it's Barakat. I hope I'm saying his name, Chris Barakat and colleagues. And the title is Body Recomposition: Can Trained Individuals Build Muscle and Lose Fat at the Same Time? Now, this isn't the only research on this topic, but this is a really, really good overview that looks at a bunch of studies. I mean, I don't know, like 20, 30, something, 50, maybe. I don't know. I'm not actually sure. It has maybe like 10 or so. Anyway. So yeah, this study is looking at a bunch of studies, and what they basically found is like, yeah, people absolutely can still gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. It's just going to happen slower, but that's to be expected anyway, because muscle growth slows down as training age increases anyway. So it's like the person who has been training for 10 years, they're going to gain muscle slower, whether they are in a deficit, maintenance, or surplus. And like, obviously, you know, if they're in a deficit, they'll gain slower than they would in a surplus, of course. But recomping is a very viable strategy for anybody. Like, you can absolutely do both. It's just, again, like I said earlier, the greater deficit that you're in, the slower muscle growth is going to happen. You get into too big of a deficit, you might lose a little bit of muscle temporarily. Once you'll get it back eventually once you go back into maintenance or a surplus, or put a little bit of weight back on. But it's about deciding what's the priority for you and then making decisions based on that. But yeah, I really do push against people who say, oh, just, if you're highly trained, if you've been training for years, you can't recomp. It's like, that's not true. And we have plenty of research to show. Okay. So some psychological considerations. I was thinking about some questions that might pop up about recomping, and so I'll just ask those and then kind of give some like bullet point thoughts on it, and maybe freestyle, some of the bullets. So, how can someone stay motivated when progress may seem slower than with a traditional bulk or cut? What mindset shifts need to happen? Okay, so this is a really good. I don't want to like, be excited for myself or like hype myself up and say it's a good question, but this is a very common question that I get. I mean, yeah, I just get it commonly. So, and it's the same thing in maintenance. Like, okay, what do you look for if not weight? With weight loss, with fat loss, it's like we see that trend coming down over time, and that can be very exciting because it's like, okay, what I'm doing is working. But if you decide to shoot for body recomp and you decide like, okay, instead of like maybe a 500 calorie deficit, which will very, very roughly equal about a pound of weight loss per week, maybe I want to do a little bit slower, maybe 250 calorie deficit, 200 calorie deficit, 300 calorie deficit. That'd be totally fine. Muscle growth will be better there than it would at 500. You'll be able to see fat loss a little bit slower, but you'll still be able to see it maybe in the neighborhood of about a half pound per week at a 250 calorie deficit ish. And so some things that I would be looking for, like, okay, yeah, weight might come down slowly. You're talking half pound a week, maybe. And so instead, like, I would shift your focus to their performance. And so looking at your strength, um, you know, looking at strength in the short term is not very indicative of much outside of you're getting better at a movement. There are neurological adaptations, things like that. But in the long term, once you've, tapped out, I'm going to say like air quote tapped out, and I'm being kind of hyperbolic. But once you've gotten very efficient with a movement, once you've learned the skill, once you have gotten most of the neurological adaptations, then when we see strength increase, it's more indicative of muscle growth. So that'd be something I look out for is, are you setting PRs? Not week to week, maybe not even month to month, but just like over time, maybe month to month though. Are you getting one more rep, on a set, or increasing weight marginally? Some other stuff, maybe look at some non-scale victories, some, improved energy levels. Maybe you keep a spreadsheet or just a note somewhere of like, I feel like 7 out of 10 energy or 8 out of 10 energy. And you could do that for day to day, or you could do that across the week. Maybe think about, am I sleeping better? Or how my clothes are fitting. And I do think that just like writing a note to yourself could be a good idea on this in this regard. That way you have some data to look back on. It's very hard to be like, what was my sleep like, or what was my energy like a month ago? But if you have, these written notes of like, sleep was 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, and then you start, trying to improve your physical fitness and make some dietary changes and improve the nutritional habits. And, maybe over time it's okay, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And that can be very rewarding as well, seeing that there are positive changes in that regard. Um, when you're looking at recomp, and especially if you look toward maintenance, you're probably going to have to zoom out a lot more than you would otherwise. When we're talking about fat loss, like, you could lose a half pound, 1 pound per week, maybe a pound and a half, maybe 2 pounds per week if you have a lot of excess body fat. And so it's like, but when you're at recomp or maintenance, that's not happening. like it's a lot slower. So you need to zoom out a lot more. Like the progress on the scale is not going to be the same. And then the last thing here for the psychological considerations would be to focus on your habits. Don't try not to worry about these specific outcomes because they're just going to take a long time. And when you're chasing these two goals of fat loss and muscle growth at the exact same time, it can feel like you're just kind of spinning your wheels. And so that's where I would focus more on, and I know everybody says this too, but I really would try to focus more on the process and less on, the outcome, because the outcome, I think all of our goals are they're always shifting back. You know what I mean? Like we hit the touchdown, whatever it is, we reach our goal, and then it's like, well, once we hit that, it's like, okay, well, now I want to get there. Now I want to get there. And that's the same for your professional life, your finance goals, your fitness goals, whatever it is. It's like we're always shifting the goalposts further and further and further back, and we're trying to reach the new thing. And so I think having those outcome goals can be a good idea, but you just really got to align them with the process goals too. What kind of processes will help you get to where you want to be, and just sticking to those processes over and over and over again, but then celebrating you actually doing those processes. Because if you're only celebrating the outcome, like how often do you actually achieve an outcome goal? For most of you, you probably set an outcome like, I want to lose 30 pounds. It's like, okay, that's going to take half a year or a year. Like that's going to take a long time. You're not doing that in 2 weeks. What if instead you were like, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds. Let's chunk that into 5-pound increments. Now you get to celebrate 6 times as often, which is already pretty cool. But then you also think about, okay, what processes would help me get to that point? What processes would help me lose the next 5 pounds? Well, it's probably tracking my diet. Not saying you have to track your diet. There are other ways to handle your nutrition, but let's just use that as an example. Maybe it's tracking your diet. Maybe it's lifting weights 2, 3, 4 times per week. Maybe it's going on a daily WALK. If you're new here, we can't say that because our dogs will lose their minds. And things like that. So that's what I would do, is try to focus on the habits. Earlier in this episode, I did talk about, or I hinted at this, and I kind of forgot to mention this again. Whoops. That you can technically lose body fat at maintenance. So the idea of maintenance is you're eating at maintenance calories, so weight doesn't change, right? And so let's just say you're 150 pounds and you're eating at maintenance. Welcome back.
Hello.
How's our son doing?
He's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Did he go back to sleep?
Yeah.
Nice.
Really fast.
Cool. So let's say you're 150 pounds. And you're eating at roughly maintenance. There's no true maintenance, because it varies a lot. Like it's not like 2,506 calories, I will maintain my weight. If I go 2,507, I'm gaining 10 pounds next week. I'm sure that's how some people feel though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, let's say I eat at maintenance and I lift weights, and we know that if I lift weights and I eat at maintenance, what happens? Muscle growth, right? And so let's say across the year I gain, I don't know. I mean, you could gain maybe 5 pounds, maybe 10 pounds. If you're brand new to the gym, you might be able to gain 20 pounds of muscle. I mean, in a year, it's feasible if you hire me with the Change Project.
That's good.
So, but let's say you're 150 pounds, you're eating at maintenance, you gain 10 pounds of muscle. What happens? Did you lose 10 pounds of bone? Did you lose 10 pounds of brain mass? No, you lost 10 pounds of body fat at the same time. So that's kind of what can happen, but it's so freaking slow. I mean, muscle growth is slow. It's right. Slow, and it slows down the longer you've been training. Like I said, if you're brand new, you're going to see these crazy changes. And, for me, I've been doing this so long, and I've worked with so many people at this point that I can see people gain muscle within visually within 3 months of working with me, 6 months. I mean, in 12 months, we could be a totally different looking person. Mm-hmm. But it's sometimes, I'm not trying to bash you, listener, but there are a lot of people out there that it's like, I want this to happen in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The changes that you're going to see in 3 weeks they're nothing. Yeah. It's absolutely nothing. You might start to feel better. You might start to feel more energy. You might start to feel maybe a little bit of difference in your clothes, but you're probably not going to see that many visual changes in the mirror or in progress photos across 3 weeks. It'll take longer than that. And that actually leads in real well to this next section, which is realistic expectations. Like, what kind of timeline should people expect for noticeable results from body recomposition? Mm-hmm. So if you're a beginner or returning after a long break, I mean, 6 to 12 weeks could be reasonable to see some kind of visible changes. And by the way, highly recommend progress photos, because you're not just going to be able to remember what you looked like. Like, that's not how it works. Like, you need to see the side by side. If you're intermediate or advanced lifter, like you've been lifting like 3 to 10 plus years, I mean, it's going to take a minute. I mean, 3 to 6 months, but probably realistically, like if you're on the advanced side, like year.
Yeah. Like, and also when we say noticeable changes, like they might be subtle.
Yeah, they might be subtle.
You know, noticeable changes doesn't mean drastic.
Yeah, you're not turning from like who's a good example? Okay, you're not going to turn from Christian Bale in The Machinist to Christian Bale in The Dark Knight in 12 weeks. It's not happening. Are you familiar?
I've never seen The Machinist, but I can.
No. Google it. Everybody take a moment to Google it. Like, listeners too. Just type in Christian Bale, The Machinist. You see my point?
I'm following.
I mean, he probably put on, that's a difference of like 60 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
And probably 100 pounds total. I mean, it's an insane body transformation. And like, I'm sure he had help. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he had help. And I'm not talking a personal trainer and a personal chef. I'm sure he had that too, but I'm sure he probably had some help. You know what I mean? I'm not going to accuse Christian Bale. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Like, I don't know. And like, I don't know. But like, all of Hollywood, it's their job to like get crazy, to get in crazy shape.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying lean, but when like sometimes like, I don't know, anyway, whatever. Okay. We're going to gloss past that. So yeah, I mean, give yourself, I would say at least 12 weeks before you're like, this isn't working. And if your strength is going up, if your measurements are going down, you're on the right track. Like, you're doing the right, if weight is coming down, assuming that you want to move a little bit more toward the deficit rather than like a little more toward maintenance, then the scale will come down. Then you're doing the right stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's some of the things that I would recommend for individuals to track progress effectively. Because scale weight, like I said earlier, might not be the best tell, especially if you're eating closer to maintenance. Mm-hmm. So first, body measurements. So I would be regularly tracking circumference of different areas. I would basically always do the neck, waist, and hips. But then you could also add in things that might be a priority for you. So for example, maybe your glutes are a priority, whether that is you want to increase the size of your glutes, which is it's like pretty common these days, or you want to decrease the size of your, hips. Either way, maybe that's I guess I did say neck, waist, and hips. Those are ones that I recommend all the time anyway. Hips is glutes. Yeah, same thing. But okay. Like for
arms.
Yeah. For me. So for your arms, like maybe you want to grow your arms, or you want to shrink your arms, whatever. You could do that. You could do that either way. Okay. First, how would you shrink your arms? This is not a trick question.
I would stop training them and then.
No. Oh my God. It wasn't even a trick question. Okay.
I don't even know.
Okay. Technically, she's right. If we wanted to, okay, you guys, oh God. Technically, she's right. If we want to shrink our arms, calorie deficit and never train your arms, because then the muscle will atrophy. But when most people want to say like they want to shrink their arms, I basically am. It's very rare that I would recommend, hey, let's atrophy the muscle on your body. Like, that's not, muscle's so healthy for us. It's so healthy. It reduces our risk of cognitive diseases. It reduces our risk of diabetes. It keeps us strong. Yeah. And so the last thing I'd recommend is like, hey, I want to get my arms a little more toned. Never train them.
Okay, when you say shrink your arms,
no, I know.
I'm definitely not thinking like, oh, I want lose weight.
Okay, well, that's the thing, is like when we lose body fat, we already have that muscle there, and so it shrink wraps. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like we can start to see that more visible muscle.
Yeah,
so
it's packaged differently.
Exactly. So some of the body measurements, going back to that I take basically everything: neck, shoulders,
chest.
Yeah, I was gonna like maybe give a little bit of like reference, you know. So like neck, I do right under the Adam's apple. Shoulders, I do with my hands just down to my side and then around the widest point of my delts, and like all the way around like my upper torso. Chest, I go under the arms but right on the nipple line. Waist, I do on the belly button. Hips, I put feet together and then go on the widest part of my hips or glutes. I do both of my quad or like thighs, and that's just to see like leg growth, hamstring, quads, adductors, stuff like that. And I do that just about halfway up my thigh. That's not a perfect one. It's basically like the widest part of my thigh though. And then I do that on both sides. Then I also do calves. Oh, and I also do arms at my biceps, or specifically at the widest point of my upper arm. And then I do my forearms as well at the widest point as well. So those are all the ones that I do. I do those every single month on the first of every month.
I think monthly is a pretty solid time. I wouldn't do it more frequently.
I wouldn't do it weekly. I wouldn't do it weekly. It's pointless to do it weekly. At the same time you're doing that, I would take photos. So progress photos is the next thing. And try to be really consistent with this in terms of not just like doing once a month. Just set a thing in your calendar, like progress photos and measurements. First of every month. It doesn't have to be the first. It could be the 15th. It could be the 12th. It could be the 28th, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I would do these monthly. But when you're doing progress photos, try to set it up so that you have roughly the same lighting, same angles. Pro tip, set yourself up, and feel free to turn the video on. If you're on a video medium, you don't have to be, but try to set it up so that it is your a lighting source, and then the camera, and then you. Okay, I'm going to repeat that one more time. So it's the lighting source, then the camera, and then you. And the reason for this is if you put the lighting source behind you, you are going to get these really harsh shadows on the back or on the front of your body, and this bright, you know, thing coming from the back of your body, and you just won't be able to see like the definition in your abs and your stomach, like whatever. You won't be able to see it. So it's really important that you have light coming onto you. And your camera, and this is like a photography tip overall. Like lighting is really, really important. And if every single time you take a picture, you think, okay, this is the way I need to do it. I need to go light, camera, me. Light, camera, action. Yes. I'm action in this regard. Light, camera, me. This can also be if there's the sun, and like, I'm not saying look into the sun, but like basically like look toward the sun. That you'll get a lot better selfies that way if you look toward like near-ish the sun. Anyway, another thing I would look at is strength gains over time. This is pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to expand on this. Like I said earlier, if you want to track somewhere, maybe on a Google Sheet or something like that, some like biofeedback. It's kind of a buzzwordy phrase, but it is like, it's like a real thing. Yeah. Looking at your energy levels, just give yourself a 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. Energy levels, recovery, sleep quality, stuff like that. Energy level. Oh, I said energy levels. Maybe you could use some body composition tools. If you're going to do this, I would steer maybe more toward like a DEXA scan. While it's not perfect, it's probably the best commercial-ish way of testing your body composition. But I wouldn't do this monthly. I would do this like once a year. You know, maybe like once a year would be reasonable. You could do it once every other year, but like you really don't need this. Just look in a mirror. Just look in a mirror.
I was gonna say, if you're looking to do a DEXA scan, like you can probably visually see.
Yes. Yeah. Look in a mirror, people. So many people are like, oh, I need to see how much muscle. Just look in a mirror. Who cares?
Right. The exact number is not going to really.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The exact number of your body fat or your muscle, it literally does not matter. Look in a freaking mirror. And if you feel too fluffy, go into a calorie deficit and lose some body fat. And if you feel like you don't have enough muscle, okay, continue on lifting. That's it. Okay, I know I'm getting worked up about this, but oh my God, so many people are like, how much body fat do I have? I don't care. It does not matter, because what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that number? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
you're either gonna be feeling, you're probably gonna feel not great about it. You're gonna be like, wait, I have 45 pounds of body fat, which wouldn't be that much, by the way.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that like
hold on, let me think.
Dependent.
Yeah, it is, but let me think now. Okay, well, okay. That could be actually a very significant amount. I'm thinking of like if somebody's 160 pounds and they have 45 pounds of body fat, they're going to be like, I mean, 20 something percent, 24, 25, 26%, something like that. Let me see. What did I say? 40? Did I say 40 or 45? 45. Okay, so it's gonna, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be like, that'd be 28% body fat. That'd be too much body fat for if you're a man. If you're a man, you probably don't want to be that high body fat percentage just for optimal health. You probably want to get that a little bit lower, like 10 to 20% is a decent range, not perfect. 10% isn't necessarily healthier than 20%, but we can be equally healthy at that entire range. For women, it's, why am I telling you guys this? I just said, why am I telling you guys this? Let me finish because I don't want women to be like, well, you didn't even finish. For women, it's probably like 18 to 30% ish. And again, 18% isn't necessarily healthier than 30%. It's we could be equally healthy in any of that range. However, I want to go back. Please, if you're like writing those numbers down, stop it. Go back and rewind like 2 minutes to where I was ranting that like you don't need to know your body fat percentage. You don't. The worst though, the one body composition tool that I would not recommend is bioelectrical impedance analysis, BIA. These are the foot scales that you would see, like whether it is in your bathroom, whether it is at the gym, or and maybe they're handheld, maybe your doctor's office. Maybe they feel like they're really high tech. Your doctor's wrong. Maybe they feel like they're really high tech when they're like, okay, go ahead and take off your shoes and socks and go ahead and hold on to these metal things and then stand on this metal plate and we're going to be able to tell you your body composition. I want you to tell your doctor you're full of shit. That's what I want you to say. You can say, Alex Teamy said, you're full of shit, doc. You can't tell me my body composition because of this. So, okay, here's how it works. So whether it's the foot one, whether it's the hand one, or whether it's both, what it does is it's sending an electrical signal up one limb and down the other. And based on the rate of that signal, because this electrical signal will move faster through more hydrated tissue, and muscle is very highly hydrated, and body fat is not as highly hydrated. It'll move faster through the muscle and slower through the body fat. So hypothetically, the rate that it moves through your body, okay, it can tell you kind of your body composition. However, if you are, if your muscle is inflamed at all, like you had a recent-ish workout and your muscle's like a little bit swollen, okay, that's going to mess it up. If you are either, depending on how many carbohydrates you have in your body, specifically how much stored glycogen you have in your body, that is going to mess it up. Depending on how hydrated you are, that is going to mess it up. Can you guarantee that you have the exact same degree of training inflammation, the exact same degree of glycogen in your muscle, and the same exact degree of hydration on a day-to-day basis? You'd be so misguided if you said yes. I mean, you'd be so hysterically wrong. And so the issue with this is that, and some people will be like, okay, well, maybe it's wrong, but I can use it as a trend. No, you can't. You cannot. Yeah. So it has these, it'll first go off of just like you have to enter in your height, your weight, you know, stuff like that. And it'll first start off with a calculation, right? And then it'll add in the speed of that transfer. It's just, you know, one time on one of those, I tested at 1.8% body fat. Do you know how dead I would have been? Not like tired. I'm not saying tired. Yeah. I'm saying deceased. Yeah. I don't know how to make this clear. I'm saying I wouldn't be alive if I was 1.8% body fat. Not to mention, I mean, okay, I'd be dead, but do you know how good I'd look? I'd be shredded.
That's a joke.
That's a joke. Yes,
yeah, that's a joke.
It's just a joke. But anyway, yeah. So BIA is not is not a technology I would look at. It's not good for trend analysis because it's no better than random because of all the reasons that I just said. Because
too many variables.
No, you guys, I have said this. I've said this to people in my DMs. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, but so many times over the last few years. And it's like, I try to tell people, hey, it's not an accurate technology and it's not much better than random. In fact, it's probably not better than random. And people still say, well, I could use it for trend analysis. I feel like what part of random did you not get? And I say this lovingly. I hope the person who I messaged about that a few weeks ago isn't like, upset about that. But I want everybody to know that like BIA it's not reliable. And the downside of it is if you've been training for a long time and then you do a BIA analysis or whatever, BIA is the analysis. But anyways, you do a BIA test and it's like, oh, you're 18% body fat and you feel either good or bad about that. And sometimes, okay, we're good. We had a little sneeze stitch. She held it in like a professional.
Yeah.
But like, let's say you're, 18% body fat and the personal trainer at your local gym makes you feel bad about it. Like, oh, you gotta start working with me. Okay. That did happen at the gym.
Yeah.
That we used to work at.
Yeah.
Not you work out at.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. In Illinois. And I was just like, you guys are nuts. Like,
can you imagine wanting to go like do a workout?
And it was new clients. It was like it wasn't even like they signed up for personal training. It was like, hey, come here. We're doing free body fat analysis tests.
Yeah. Or like if you did a drop in, they would like before they let you just work out.
Yeah. They're like, here, come sign this like waiver form, which is normal. But then they're like, and also let's check your body fat. It's like
like how humiliating.
That's insane.
And rude.
And then they would try to sell you on a plan. They are out of business now.
Yeah.
Which
that makes sense.
It was a solid gym, but I didn't like the ownership. Apparently there was like money laundering.
I don't know. The place was weird.
From an inside source who worked there. there was and the guy who owned it was he fled the country. He was from out of the country anyway, but he fled the country and it was like, anyway, it's a pretty crazy story, actually. Maybe I'll have the person that I'm thinking of. I don't want to say his name or whatever, but like maybe I'll have him on the podcast sometime. I'm sure he'd love to talk about it. Next time he's in town and he stays with us, that'd be fun. Okay. Sorry, guys. We're talking about BIA. So, somebody says like, oh, let's do a BIA test. And it's like, you're 18%, right? And then you lift for, 6 months and you're clearly gaining muscle. You're like, oh yeah, I feel stronger. My lifts are all up. I can visually see the muscle, all that. But maybe your weight is the same. And then you take it next time, you're a little less hydrated and it says you're 19% body fat. You're gonna be like, oh, wow. all of this was for nothing. But like every other thing in your life, every other metric points to that you're gaining muscle, right?
It's the same sort of thing of like sometimes too much data is just noise.
Yeah. I agree.
Sometimes there's too much to focus on. Too much. You gotta scale it back.
But that one especially, like I'm cool with data. It's just that's just dog shit data. It's like I don't even know like what to compare it to that would be realistic. I mean, spin around 3 times, throw a dart on the dartboard, and there you go. Whatever number you landed on, that's your body fat percentage. There you go. That is going to be basically as accurate as BIA. Not literally, but like basically. And then last, and we should have saved this, or we should have said the BIA thing for last because I really went on a tangent there, but also pay attention to how your clothes fit.
Yeah, this is so much more gentle. And
right. Yeah. Okay. So here are the practical takeaways before we wrap it up. So first, weigh out your goals. What is more important? When we're looking at body recomposition, we obviously are going to want to be doing losing body fat and gaining muscle at the same time. Mm-hmm. But if you had to think, which one is more important? And then just lean a little bit more toward that one. You don't have to go all in on one or the other. You absolutely could do a dedicated cut and then maybe down the road either pivot to maintenance or go all the way. If you're like, I'm cool with adding a little bit of body fat, which to be fair, I wouldn't recommend for a whole lot of like gen pop, like general lifestyle people, unless you love the gym and you love muscle growth. Yeah. Like go listen to the Bulking 101 episode if you're curious about bulking. Let's just stay within the realm of like calorie deficit to maintenance. So what's more important? Is it fat loss? Okay, maybe we move a little bit further into a calorie deficit. But if you're like, I do want to see sufficient muscle growth, okay, maybe we move a little bit more toward maintenance. Maybe we find this happy medium of like a 250 calorie deficit, give or take. That'd be totally fine. And you could also like test the waters with a 500 calorie deficit, 400 calorie deficit, 600 calorie deficit, whatever it is. You can always test the waters. And if you're like, ooh, I'm low energy, getting a little hangry, I'm hungry, I don't like the way I'm sleeping, then like just reduce the size of your deficit. Just like be happy that despite losing body fat slower, you are gaining muscle faster. That's a really good perspective to have, that it's like these scales are shifting. It's not just that, oh wow, it's going to take me longer to lose the weight. It's like, no, you're moving toward muscle growth at a faster rate now. So that's a huge positive. It's not all negative.
The other side of this is like, if your big part of your goal is weight loss, but you're really struggling with adherence, I think aiming for that smaller calorie deficit and being able to prioritize muscle growth in order to achieve your goals, if like adherence is really something you struggle with and you're not sticking to that larger calorie deficit, you might just be happier with the smaller deficit approach.
Maybe. And the reason I say maybe, and maybe this is something that we should talk about in the rapid fat loss. Well, it's actually something I had written down for the rapid fat loss kind of topic episode, is in some research, there was a study, and I haven't read it in a few months, so I'm kind of blanking on all the details. But there was a study that looked, and there was a 3-year follow-up, and they had aggressive weight losers versus like conservative weight losers. And the aggressive weight losers were more adherent. And so I'm not saying that like aggressive weight loss is the right thing to do for everybody, but I do think that there is nuance there. And I wouldn't say that if somebody is non-adherent with the calorie target that they are currently at, I think it is more complex than just saying reduce the size of your deficit. I think it is more complex than even saying increase the size of your deficit. I think it is much more complex than that. And I would say, like, honestly, overarching advice would be maybe hire a coach to help you keep you on track, and maybe work with a therapist to see what's going on, to figure out what's going on. But I think that just saying reduce the size of your deficit, I love you, I'm not trying to make you like, I'm not trying to like, but I do just want our listeners to know that, like, I mean, sometimes, like, let me put it this way. If you're on a bike and you're going real slow, it's kind of wobbly. What do you got to do? You got to go faster. And it's not the advice for everybody, but just know that, like, maybe there's some nuance there. We'll talk about it. And I don't know if it's the next episode, but in a future episode. Okay. The next practical takeaway, like, be okay with zooming out and seeing the long-term approach, because if you are thinking about going with fat loss a little bit slower, then the scales are just not going to change that fast. So be ready to zoom out. Look at maybe month to month weight average rather than week to week. Next, like, think about how much body fat do you currently have. If you are like so lean that your abs have abs, like maybe a deficit isn't the thing. Maybe like body recomposition is like a little bit less likely, maybe
like you've done it.
Maybe, yeah, you did it. Congratulations. Maybe pivot more toward maintenance, or maybe a slight surplus, but maintenance at least. Think about how many years have you been lifting. If it's not that long, you're probably going to be able to do both at the same time. And even if it is a while, then you probably still can do it. Just know that muscle growth will be slower. And then the other practical takeaways, just be sure you're training hard. I mean, you listen to this podcast, so I know you know this. Be sure you're taking your sets close to failure. You don't have to take it all the way to failure, but a lot of people that I see training, whether it's in the gym or whatever, they're not taking their sets anywhere near close to failure. And so maybe once in a while, take a set to failure, see what it's like. And failure isn't just like, oh, this is kind of hard, I'm going to be done. Failure is, if there was a gun to my head, I could not do one more.
Yeah.
It's an intense way to phrase it, but it's real. Yeah. Like, how hard are you pushing yourself? Right. That is 0 RIR. That is 0 reps in reserve.
Yeah.
Chill with like 1 to 2. 1 to 2 reps in reserve. That's a really good place to be.
And if you do decide to test going to failure, pick an exercise that's not like a back squat.
Barbell back squat.
That's an aggressive one.
Throw
to
405 on the bar and just like send it. Yeah, no, don't do
like a cable bicep curl.
Yeah. Like isolation movements are usually pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
You know what? It'd be fun. First time, bring your grandma to the gym. I want everybody to do this. Everybody. Call your grandma tomorrow morning. Call your grandma and say, Grandma, will you please come to the gym with me? I would really want to go with you. And then throw on the leg extension machine. No warm up.
Yeah.
Leg extensions. And just say, another grandma, another grandma, another rep grandma. And she'll be like, oh no, I can't. And you'll be like, you have to, And then she'll know what training to failure is like. And you will too. You'll see it. You'll be able to see it from the coaching perspective. It'll be so cool. It'll be such a bonding experience for you and your grandma. Okay, next, sleep a lot. If you sleep more, you will have an easier time losing body fat, easier time gaining muscle. That is pretty. Have we done an episode on sleep yet?
No.
Really?
We've been talking about it since the beginning.
That's so funny. I actually do have one, Sleep 101, muscle growth, fat loss, and more. And I actually have like some notes on it too.
Yeah.
I have so many episodes that I plan to do. It's just like
sleep is actually one I think we talked about doing really early on.
Yeah.
And it just always gets pushed off.
It's just like, I don't know. It's such an interesting topic too, because I don't think people prioritize enough. Another one that I want to do that I have written down is alcohol.
Yeah.
Like just controversial. Yeah. That'll get the clicks.
Actually, I don't know if saying alcohol is bad for you is controversial. I think we all kind of accept that.
I think everybody is okay with the reality
it's just kind of like, all right, whatever.
It's just like, don't judge me if I drink alcohol. And that's like always my thing is like, I don't want to judge people for making that decision. I just want you to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And like hearing that, what percentage of it, do you remember what percentage of Americans didn't realize that alcohol caused cancer?
I don't remember.
I wrote that somewhere in one of my posts, something like that. It was like 60 or 70% or something like that.
Something like that. It's very high.
That number isn't like in stone. I don't remember it exactly. Okay. The last practical takeaway, increase your protein. So, protein will help out with muscle growth and muscle growth and muscle maintenance. And so, maybe going up to, if you're at 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 grams per pound, maybe going up to 1 gram per pound, or even, and this has been researched, potentially up to 1.4 grams per pound. Now that's a lot. Personally, I'm not doing that. If you're a bodybuilder and you are getting like to the very end of, you're getting close to stage, this makes sense for you because this is like your profession. This is whether it's a hobby, whether it's your profession, whatever it is, like you are taking this very seriously. If you are like Jenny from Sacramento, I was going to say Jenny from the block, but I didn't want to like, but like Jenny from Sacramento or whatever. You don't got to do that. Like you don't like it's
unless
fine.
You really enjoy it.
Yeah. Unless you love protein. But then I also think like, okay, at that point you might be taking away from your carbs, your fats, like training performance might go down. Hormone production might go down with decreasing your fats
also,
too much.
That's a lot of
protein.
What, chicken and Greek yogurt
and protein powder and
it's just
tofu
a lot.
And whatever else. Yeah.
Gets a little boring. Yeah. I imagine.
Yeah. So, okay. For me personally, like my protein gets up to about 1.1, 1.2 grams per pound when I'm in a fat loss phase, largely to help out with satiety, but also to help out with muscle maintenance. But yeah. All right. That is it, everybody. Once again, I would love for you to check out the A-Team or Forward Forever or my one-on-one coaching program, The Change Project. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate it. And if you really want to go the extra mile, screenshot and share it on your Instagram story and tag me. If you want to check out check out supplements that I'm sponsored by, Legion. They are third-party tested, and I do recommend them. Use code ALEXTME. That's Alex T-Me for 20% off your first order and double points on purchase. And I'm also sponsored by MacroFactor, which is the best tracking app on the market. I haven't really talked about it too much, but it tells you your expenditure. You enter your goals, you track your weight, you track your nutrition, and it'll adjust your targets based on your goals and your rate of weight change and your intake and all that stuff. And it tells you your expenditure. So a lot of really cool data to be had there. So use code ALEX, ALEX, for a 2-week free trial. That is it from us, unless you have anything else to say. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody, and take care.